Literally, I'm working on a car right here, working on my truck. But I told her, like, I ain't gonna be able to make it. I forgot she was over here. That's not bad. Everybody knew Lil Vince. I met him back in 74. Yeah.
Here's your girl. Take this. Oh.
Yeah,
I'm about to throw y'all up in there. I was putting most of y'all. Yeah. We just, I thought we all fun. Shakira. Give me a break. I'm the target. You down one. I'll be here. Yeah, slow down. Come on, come on. All right.
Good morning. Thank you, everyone that has come to hear the update on the Vincent Truitt case.
we want to put this in perspective, where we are in this moment, almost 90 days since the unfortunate incident that happened on July the 14th, 2020 to Mr. Vincent Truitt. And we want to put in perspective who he was, the injustice that was perpetrated against him, and the call from the family. We want to first and foremost thank the pastor of this house for opening this church property to the Truitt family to make sure that justice is achieved in this case. So at this time, I want to bring up Pastor Vickers to kind of give us the occasion and focus us as we take this journey for justice for Vincent Truitt. So I would call up Mr. Pastor Vickers to the podium.
Good morning. My name is Reverend Eric George Vickers, and I serve as pastor of Beulah Baptist Church here in the Vine City community. And I also have the distinct privilege and pleasure of serving as the pastor to this wonderful family. I want to take this opportunity to thank the village, community of support who has stood by this family throughout this great ordeal. Let me just say that this tragedy has been an unimaginable nightmare. Yet our faith informs us that God's grace is sufficient for us. Why are we here today? Why am I here today? I'm here as one who has been called by God to stand with moral authority in the tradition of the 8th century prophets who decried, "Let justice roll down like waters and righteousness as a mighty stream." I stand with this family in the tradition of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, who spoke to systems and structures and strongholds and lived a life that helped us to know that how we treat one another and how we care for one another is always of utmost importance. I would ask that you would continue to pray for this family, to uplift them as we seek for the truth to be told. The words of the late drum major, Dr. Martin Luther King, said that no lie can live forever. And this family has endured more than you could ever imagine. And yet I find refuge in the words of William Cullen Bryant. Truth crushed to earth will rise again. I can hear the words of the late drum major reverberating now, even decades later, that the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. And we've come today to acknowledge that the bend is here. We thank you for your presence. Again, we solicit your prayers, and I ask that you would continue to encourage this wonderful family. Thank you. God bless you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. As has already been said, we come before you to raise awareness to yet another occasion of black life being stolen from a black family at the hand of a policing agency which seemingly seems to want to impair justice. Vincent Truitt was more than who Cobb County authorities would have you to believe. Some of their spokespersons have altered their versions of the tragic events that took place on July 13th and the 14th. And those events led to the shooting and the ultimate death of our son. This scenario, however, is all too common. It appears, in fact, that were it left up to some of the authorities who are conducting this investigation,
and namely the chief of police from Cobb County, whereby yesterday evening in a news conference, in his own words, he suggested that the family should just let the investigation be completed. All the while he was making these comments to a local news agency over the phone, he is vacationing. In a few moments, you will hear from Vincent's parents. They will tell you who Vincent really was to his family and this community. But I'd just like to briefly tell you about the young man who was assigned to me when he was just a very little boy, when I was appointed to be his godfather. A young man who spent his weekends and his summers attending youth programs, working with youth projects, and attending Vacation Bible School right here at this church. In fact, he even played basketball and intramural sports right down the street in the community park with his friends. If I were to draw a parallel for how this has played out over these many weeks, I'd call your attention to a famous popular song from 2013 that was recorded famously by the joint vocals of Pharrell Williams and Robin Thicke. And unfortunately, as popular as that song was, it would become embroiled in a controversy of copyright infringement. Of course, the song garnered a little bit of criticism because some suggested the lyrics were of a lewd nature. But the writers of this song were sued by the children of R&B icon, Mr. Marvin Gaye, because in the lawsuit petition, they alleged that the song was simply another rendition of a famous song from 1977 entitled "Got to Give It Up." In any case, that case reached federal courts and was settled with the distinction of similarities not being blurred, because the songs, if you play them simultaneously, sound very much alike. And so with that parallel, I'll say this. Our message is clear. There are no blurred lines in this scenario. Our son was killed by Cobb County police. And in what they commonly refer to as an officer-involved shooting, the shooting was one-sided, according to the reports. If the actions of the police officers are justified, why has it taken 80 days to produce the evidence? And so we say very blatantly to all Cobb County authorities in charge of this investigation, there are no blurred lines, and it's time that you give it up. Show us the video. Show us the evidence that led to the shooting and killing of our beloved Vincent. You see, Mr. Tim Cox, Chief of Police, while you want us to just continue to wait, and while you are vacationing and relaxing, this family is hurting. So if the mere presence of you accepting a phone call from a local news reporter on yesterday was to simply say, just sit back and wait, we say enjoy your vacation, because we're hurting while we wait. And now we'll invite to the podium Vincent's mother, Ms. Venethia Cook Lewis.
Hello. There has been multiple stories reported regarding my son's murder. stories that defamate his character. My son was murdered mid-July. I have yet to view anybody camera footage regarding to this matter. Not only was my baby murdered, 18 hours passed before we were notified. Not only were we not notified, but escorted out of Grady after desperately looking for our child. Vincent has never been a violent person. He has no violent history whatsoever. Vincent was a special child to many people. He was our firstborn. He was a first grandchild. He was a hero to his little brother and sister. He was a best friend. You robbed us of our future. Vincent had big plans to graduate and to continue his entrepreneurship. He was a pillar to the community, serving the community, volunteering with organizations such as Hosea Feed the Hunger, counsel small children during summer programs at Powell Recreation Center. He was strongly affiliated in the church. He was an awesome basketball player, most valuable player on every team he played on. To add to his talents, he played soccer. He later went on to become a certified referee. He also was an artist and a fashion designer. No parent should have to go through what I'm going through. No parent should have to bury their son, their teenage son, due to something that could have been avoided. No parent should have to wait 80 days for answers. No parent should be escorted out of the hospital while looking for their minor child. My child died alone. I have never let him down. I've always been there for him. And I won't stop now. I want this officer fired and prosecuted to the full extent of the law. In what world do you murder a kid, not inform his parents, and not be accounted for your actions? This is not okay. We want justice for Vincent. Thank you.
At this time, you will hear from Vincent's father, Mr. Truitt.
Good morning, everyone. I come to you this morning as a hurt, angry, all of the above as a father. I am Andre Truitt. I am a proud father of Vincent DeMario Truitt. He was affectionately called Vince. Vince was my son, he was my friend, and often seen as my mentor because of his ambitions, his dreams, his accomplishments. Vince was always willing to do what was best for his peers and associates. My strongest desire is to present my son from the positive perspective, to share his hopes and his dreams, and to continue his legacy that has only just begun. Vince was raised here in Vine City, Mosley Park communities. We stand on the steps at Beulah Baptist Church, the church where Vince was baptized and surrounded by a village of many professionals. He sung in the Sunbeam Choir. He participated in youth fellowship and junior usher ministries. His mom and I enjoyed watching him participate in the organization and his annual Easter speeches. Vince took pride in playing basketball on the Police Athletic League basketball team. I will miss playing basketball with him. He was a mesmerizing three-point shooter. Vince was a certified soccer referee. He also had gymnastic abilities. Vince took special interest in fashion and designing clothes. He started his own t-shirt line, GFN, going for nothing. Vince's name will live through his clothing line. I love my son and understand he has earned his wings. However, we will not stop until there is justice for Vincent Truitt. Thank you.
At this time, I would call his grandmother, also his second mother, to come and give remarks about Vincent.
Good morning, everyone. As you can imagine, this is hard. This is very difficult for me, but I'll get through it. I would first like to express my sincere appreciation to Pastor Vickers, Reverend W.L. Cottrell, who is the pastor emeritus, the entire Beulah Baptist Church family and officers, members of the Vine City community, as well as Mosley Park. It's so many to thank. I want to thank you all for being here for us to have our opportunity to share about Vincent. There is no way you can encapsulate his life in just a few moments. These are just part of the testimonies about my grandson, who I lovingly call my son. And if it means anything to anybody, because it sure does to me, I wrap up in this blanket every night. Thank you. That's right. I wrap up in this blanket every night because it's just some of the memories, just some of the many memories that I have of Vincent. We were close. And yes, I did call myself his real mama. But I also told his parents, my son, Andre Truitt, and his mother, Venethia Cook Lewis, I expressed to them, I will be here from day one because that's what grandmothers do. I want to share with you all my take on the information that has been shared thus far. Everyone at some time in their life has been to a library. You go in the fiction section, and it's for entertainment. You go in nonfiction, it's some true, some not so true. But if we go to the reference section, we're dealing with facts. And the facts of this case are this family has been mistreated, we have been lied to, we have been put off, and I expect that there'll be more defamation to come. But if you come correct, knowing that you have the truth before you make a decision. Don't trust what you hear, trust what you know. Earth has no sorrow that heaven cannot heal. We're looking for healing right now. And always remember there's a God that sits up high and looks down low. Continue to pray for us. I thank you for your time. God bless you. My blanket.
So now that you've heard a little bit about Vincent, I'm Attorney Gerald Griggs, and I have the distinct pleasure of representing the Truitt family in this matter. Let's talk a little bit about the facts. On the evening of July the 13th, July the 14th, police were contacted and followed a vehicle that had been reported stolen. They chased that vehicle, did a pit maneuver, and then the driver and the passenger exited the vehicle. The driver ran off, and the passenger was Mr. Truitt. This is where the story diverges twice, according to law enforcement. According to law enforcement and what's been publicly reported, Mr. Truitt exited the vehicle, and the first story was that he fired at the officer. We now know that that is not true. The second story is that Mr. Truitt exited the vehicle and brandished a weapon. We also know that that's not true. And so what we are demanding from Cobb County officials is the dash and body cam. As you know, Cobb County is mandated by internal policies to wear body camera. And so we had an occasion to meet with the GBI, and we are thankful to the Director Reynolds for meeting with the family and going over what he could discuss. We are not going to go into extreme detail, but I will say this. The police chief has some questions he needs to answer. We would also request and have requested a meeting with the district attorney because we have serious concerns about what happened on July the 13th and July the 14th. We are also asking that Grady Memorial Hospital release all records pertaining to the medical treatment of Vincent DeMario Truitt because we have some questions. This is the issue in Georgia, and I've said it time and time again. This state has a police brutality problem. We have well over 75 police-involved shootings, and 60% of them come from Metro Atlanta. That is atrocious. We need transparency and accountability, and it starts with Cobb County. My question is, if the police chief has the time to get in contact with the local media outlet, he should have the time to get in contact with this family. There's no time for vacations when you have a body and blood that screams out from the concrete demanding justice. And so we are determined to complete our investigation, and we will demand, once the investigation is complete, full accountability from Cobb County, full accountability from the district attorney's office, and charges in this case. Because one fact that is not in dispute, and that is at no time did Vincent DeMario Truitt prove to be a threat to that officer. And here is the final request. We've heard Vincent's name all over the media with different narratives. You've heard who Vincent really is. Why do we not know who this officer is? The one that's on paid administrative leave after shooting a man twice in his back. I've been practicing law a long time in Georgia, long enough to know that no one poses a threat when they're running away. And when you fire a weapon into somebody's back, puncturing their colon and causing their death, there needs to be a full and thorough investigation, which the GBI is doing, and then swift accountability for the results of that. So that's what we're calling for. We are available to meet with the sitting district attorney, Joyette Holmes. We would love to have that meeting as soon as possible. Again, we are appreciative of the GBI director for sitting down with this family yesterday and explaining as much as he could with an open investigation. But now it's time for Cobb County to have a real conversation, one with this family and two with the citizens of Cobb County, about the police brutality that's happening on their watch. So at this time, I will take any questions that the media may have.
Hey, Gerald, I spoke to Police Chief Truitt yesterday, and he had told me that Cobb County PD never said that Mr. Truitt fired a gun, fired a shot at officers. But you're hearing differently?
I've seen two reports. One report indicated a high-ranking official from Cobb County said he fired at police. I've seen that report. A second report says that Mr. Truitt brandished a weapon. Under Georgia law, there's no such thing as brandishing. You're either pointing a pistol at another or you're committing aggravated assault, neither of which happened. And we have that on good authority that, yes, there was a gun present, but at no time was it pointed at officers. So my question for Cobb County or the police chief is, why is this officer still on the force if he shot a man while he was running away in the back twice?
During that meeting with the GBI yesterday, did the director explain at all what happened within those short 5 seconds? Did he explain at all that you actually have to go frame by frame by frame in the body camera video to see a weapon, so in real time perhaps the officer couldn't see that gun?
Well, we're not going to get into the details of what the director disclosed to us, but we will say that I think the public should get a chance to see this video for themselves. And I think that from what I have been told about the video, there are some serious questions that need to be answered.
Did he give any indication at all that when that shot was fired twice at this young man, when he falls to the ground, he asked the officer, "Why did you shoot me? I'm dying, bro. I'm dying." Did he say anything about that?
There were some statements made by Mr. Truitt. We don't know the exact statements that were made. We would like to see the video, and this is why we are calling for the release of that video, because we do not know exactly what Mr. Truitt said, but we have had reports to substantiate what you are saying. But we want to see it for ourselves.
Is it confirmed that Vincent had a gun?
It is confirmed that a gun was found on the scene. At no point was that gun brandished or pointed at any officer or threatened any officer at all.
Is it Vincent's gun?
At this point, we don't have confirmation of whose gun it may or may not have been. That's why we need the release of the body cam video.
First, let me say I apologize for what your family has to be going through. I know this is a tough time, so I'm sorry for what you're going through. And let me ask you, I reached out to GBI today. They said they were asked by the Cobb County District Attorney's Office not to release the footage right now because it's an open investigation. I mean, what would you say to the DA right now? Yes, it is an open investigation, but what would you say to the DA about releasing it earlier than I guess what they plan to do?
I would say to the district attorney, I respect her judgment, but this family is hurting. This family wants answers. There have been well over 80 days. We believe that transparency is always important. You can at least show it to the family, and the family can get an understanding of the final moments of Vincent's life. And again, we have reached out to the district attorney's office. We will continue to reach out, but I think it's past time to release this. You know, when we had this conversation about equipping officers with body cam and making sure there was transparency, one of the things we called for was quick release of body camera footage. So it flies in the face of transparency for a government agency to now prevent the public from seeing what the public paid for. So I think it's time, and it's incumbent upon that elected official to release it and let the public see what happened. I mean, there's always a quick statement by law enforcement about what did or did not happen, but then there's no transparency for the public to see what actually happened.
Did the police department or the GBI explain why it took so long for someone to get a hold of this family?
They did. They apologized. There was no reason for that to happen, and we heard them. That does not change the fact that we have a family who, for well over 12 hours, did not know what was happening to their son, where their son was. And here's the thing. Vincent is a minor, and Georgia law is specific on how you treat minors. And so I think that it's incumbent upon the GBI, Cobb County Police, to apologize to this family. So, Chief Cook, while you're on vacation, my number's not hard to find. You need to get on the phone and get in touch with this family and at least offer your condolences and explain why no one got in contact with Vincent's mother or Vincent's father. And for Grady Memorial Hospital, I don't know what else to say, but when a parent is frantic over their child, at no point should a parent be escorted out of Grady. Any other questions?
Were you able to get the history of the officer in question?
We don't know who the officer is. So at this point, we're asking for full transparency. You know, Vincent's entire life is probably going to be laid bare because of what happened to him. We demand the same thing happen to this officer because we want full facts and understanding about why this happened and why, after 80 days, this family still has no answers. It does not take this long to determine whether or not a crime happened and transparency in that. And so we're demanding the same transparency any citizen would get in the case of Mr. Truitt and his family.
Gerald, can you quickly talk about the rally that's scheduled for tomorrow? The police department said they are aware about it and that they respect peaceful protests, but if things get out of control, police officers will be monitoring the area.
Yeah, I would say this. I personally have been protesting for almost 105 days for situations like this. And we've always had peaceful protests. The only violence that seems to be perpetrated and the reason for the protest seems to be from law enforcement. So we respect the First Amendment. We will protest peacefully and nonviolently in the spirit of Dr. King, whose house is not more than 2 or 3 blocks from here. And law enforcement needs to understand that if there was transparency and accountability, there would not be people protesting in the streets. So there will be a rally tomorrow at 1 o'clock. It will start at the Riverside Epicenter on the sidewalk area, and we will proceed to the location where Mr. Truitt died, for lack of a better term, was murdered, and we will commemorate his life. And so we're calling for the entire community to come together in a peaceful, nonviolent way, as we have for the last 105 days, and elevate your voice for transparency and justice for Vincent DeMario Truitt, because we need justice for Vince. And so we will be there tomorrow, Saturday, at 1 o'clock, the Riverside Epicenter, right across from Six Flags, right there on Six Flags Parkway, which is Riverside Parkway, 1 o'clock. Any other questions?
Would the police department admit not contacting the parents, or did they say they couldn't find a phone number? Was there any?
It would have been simple to get Vince's cell phone, with his mother's number was in the cell phone. They had his cell phone. Again, the GBI indicated that there was no excuse for them not making contact with the Truitt family. We heard that, but again, it does not excuse that Vincent's final moments were alone fighting for his life. And so no parent should have to bury their child. No parent should have to go hours without knowing what happened to their child. Meanwhile, law enforcement is releasing statements with their child's name in it. So they could clearly identify him, so they should clearly have been able to identify where his parents were and make contact with his parents. There's absolutely no excuse for that. We are also calling on elected officials in Cobb County. This is not the first time that Cobb has had an issue with police-involved situations. So it's time to review use of force. It's time to review the body camera policy. It's time to review how we appropriately address these situations. Because there's a national conversation going on around policing, and it just came to Cobb County. So justice for Vince will go around the world, but it's time for Cobb County, it's time for Metro Atlanta to show the rest of the world that we know how to handle this appropriately. You have an opportunity. You have the ability to make this family whole. And that's what we're calling for. We're calling for swift justice, and we're calling for it right now. If there are no further questions, I will conclude the press conference. Again, I'm Attorney Gerald Griggs, and it's my pleasure to represent the Truitt family from this point until we get justice. Thank you.